It is so frustrating to those of us that are trying to write it in Arkansas. We know that African Americans, with good reason, don't necessarily trust us. I mean, our history has been such that there's not that particular reason to do so, and we end up wondering, whenever we're going to be able to try to cross this bridge, and it's not an easy thing for any of us to do. And we have very few African American historians in Arkansas, and by the fact that I didn't even know about the fire after researching as many books as I had, certainly says something, I think, about the need for more historians and more African American historians. There's no way for me to completely cover the whole fire, and I'm not going to try to tonight. Let me go ahead and if you have any questions, though, I'll try to answer them. Anybody got any questions? Yes.
Hi. Wonderful, wonderful material. Thank you so much. I just wanted you to clear up for me now this letter that arrived at the governor's mansion the day after the fire, you said, was from...
All right, it was from Tandy Cogg's son, and Tandy Cox was the first superintendent, and he was still alive in Little Rock. This is a man who went on to become, in 1937, he became president of Arkansas Baptist College and remained in that capacity till the mid-50s. In fact, I'm not so sure he wasn't qualified to be still the superintendent, but I mean, he was not going to be appointed. But see, Lewis Cogg's as son, they had gone off and he had become a doctor. And, we kind of forget that this information about the fire just went out everywhere. Especially to African American newspapers like the Chicago Defender. I mean, they carried lots of news about African Americans. By the way, one of the things that happened was that Orville Faubus letters immediately began to flood into the governor's office, 30 of them as a matter of fact, and they were outraged by what had happened in Arkansas. 29 were critical of Governor Faubus. There was one person from Arkansas also wrote in who was critical of the fire. But by and large, we didn't criticize Governor Faubus. We were afraid. I mean, we had basically conformed our behavior at least to the point that we were not going to be critical at that stage.
My question was...
Okay. Sure.
Okay, had there been a threat that Lester Gaines was going to be fired prior to that? Is that
prior to
the letter arriving at the governor's?
No, I mean...
well, how did it arrive so quickly?
Okay, well, it was sent, it was dated, and of course, we got the letter. It was dated, I don't know why. It was sent special delivery, registered letter. And you've asked a good question, and I don't know why. I can't answer why it was dated. And
it's kind of curious, don't you think?
Well, I mean, it could be at the same time. I know we're all tempted to come up with theories about why that is. I think maybe either I made a mistake or there's something. I don't see anything particular sinister. I suspect as soon as this fire occurred, Lester Gaines called his son in Chicago, or vice versa. I mean, information went out pretty quick to African Americans all over. But go ahead and pursue that. What do you think?
Well, I'm just trying to piece it together how quickly that letter arrived, and if there was some sort of tension between Gaines and Faubus before the fire. And I'm not,
that Lester Gaines surely was real disappointed when he had become superintendent under Governor Cherry. And when Governor Faubus came in, Governor Faubus immediately cut his budget by $4,000. And in fact, there's no question in my mind that Alfred Smith, who was the board superintendent, had been appointed by Faubus to be on the board. And this guy started out really very conscientious. He was from Paragould, which is, a lot of kind of raises a red flag for historians, because Paragould was known as a sundown town too, and there are no blacks lived there. But actually, Alfred Smith was a very sincere, at least judging by the board letters, the minutes in the board meetings, he started off as being a very conscientious man and was very polite, conducted the meetings. At that time, there were 2 African Americans who were on the board of control, as they called it, over the Negro Boys Industrial School. But Alfred Smith, without any condescension, ran the board meetings just as correctly as you could ever hope, and he wasn't at all condescending. But over time, I mean, he started out being very enthusiastic and about what could happen at the school, that he could make it a better school, because what was going on at that time was that it was being run like a prison farm. There were no vocational programs there. It was just a school. It was not a school at all. It was basically a farm in which black kids were sent out to work 10 hours a day. And we know a lot of this now by Dr. Gordon Morgan, who was the first tenured African-American professor at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. Dr. Morgan was sent out, did a master's thesis at the Negro Boys Industrial School in 1956. And of course, Faubus had been there for governor for 2 years, but he found that it was a very dismal situation out there, and that there was almost no any machinery that was being used for industrial programs, that the boys were still going out and working long hours, and that there were had been armed whipping guards in the past, and that there was still what they called a whipping night at the school. Now, what I suspect is that Orville Faubus, and I learned this from reading Roy Reed closely, Orville Faubus was a very hands-on governor. I mean, this is a guy that worked 12 hours a day, and he was basically a control freak. And I think, he wasn't that interested in the Negro Boys Industrial School because the prior governor, Francis Cherry, had shown interest in it. And so he was doing other things, Faubus was, and did raise taxes for schools. But he didn't do anything for the Negro Boys Industrial School. And by 1959, I think Superintendent Lester Gaines and Faubus no longer really felt as committed themselves. I mean, that's just my feeling about that. And whether, there are lots of rumors about where was Lester Gaines that night, what was he doing. We've still a lot of unresolved stories about this. I just think that it's important to try to get the other side and find out, if it's possible, what Lester Gaines was really like, what his wife was really like, because at one point they seem to have been very involved in the Little Rock African American community, and I don't know the answer to this, but I think it's clear that Governor Faubus really did not want to take any responsibility for the fire, and he was intent on making Lester Gaines out to be the fall guy for this, when in fact it's not all that clear that he was. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I'm going to turn this back over to Deborah.